Previously from the Hood Blogger.
Officer turned, and then the gunfight was on. Police homicide captain James Clark said the officer was a hero and a warrior. Clark said he fought to the very end, firing at both of them. Unfortunately, he lost his life. Now, when he pulled his strap out, it immediately was going on, meaning during that battle, he was getting hit. He got hit numerous times, but was still throwing it back at them. And it was nasty because it was people in the store. Yo, this SV Twiz, the Hood Blogger. Y'all know how I carry it. Shout out to everybody that been rocking with the content. I appreciate y'all. The new subs, man, I see y'all. Welcome to the family. All the day ones, y'all already know how we carry it. If you're new to the channel, make sure you sub. Scroll down the timeline. You won't be disappointed. Before I start this video, I have to say Ramadan Mubarak to all the Muslims out there. Let's strive to be better. This is the month of repentance. And, you know, stand in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah guard my tongue. You know, we got a lot going on as far as with, you know, these devices we have in social media. And, you know, none of us is perfect, but at the end of the day, let's strive to do all that we can, you know, to maintain the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to repent. Now, with that being said, I want to get into a story that, you know, this was a big situation. Basically, this was like the biggest standoff in Philly history with the cops. And a lot of y'all definitely remember this because this just happened in 2019. And during this time, this was, you know, pre-pandemic. I remember because it's like after this happened, you know, the whole world ended up getting shut down. And from there on out, Philly just got real crazy for a few years. You know, Philly always, you know, had a reputation of getting serious in these streets. But, you know, these few years from like 2019 up to probably about, 2023 was real crazy. Last year, really the body rate had dropped a lot. And we have been seeing improvement in the city. But with that being said, let me get into this story. An armed suspect accused of wounding 6 officers in North Philly during nearly an 8-hour standoff surrendered early Thursday. Now, we talking about an 8-hour standoff. You know how long of a standoff that is? They had that whole section of North blocked off from Broad Street. It was just crazy. But let me get back into the story. The gunfire began Wednesday afternoon as police tried to serve an arrest warrant. Police said shortly after midnight, police spokesman Sergeant Eric Grip tweeted that a suspect was in custody and that SWAT officers were clearing the house. Police on the scene said the suspect surrendered without incident. The suspect was taken to a hospital for treatment because police had used tear gas. The Associated Press reported, "It's nothing short of a miracle that we don't have multiple officers who lost their lives today." Philadelphia Police Commissioner Richard J. Ross Jr. said Wednesday night, police were serving a warrant at a house in the northern part of the city when a gunman opened fire. 2 officers were trapped upstairs for hours before they were safely freed, along with 3 civilians by SWAT officers, the police commissioner said. In a press conference early Thursday, Ross said the suspect had prior arrests, but his office is not discussing the details of his charges at this time. President Trump tweeted Thursday morning, said the suspect should have never been allowed to be on the streets because of his very dangerous criminal record. All of the officers who were hit had been released from the hospital by late Wednesday night. The city's mayor said that one of those officers, who is the father of 2 boys, suffered a graze wound to his head and could have lost his life. There were 6 officers that was hit, and On top of that, from all of the shots that were fired, they charged him with 62 attempt charges, bro. 62 attempt charges? Picture that with a Kodak.
Date has been set for the suspect in the worst mass shooting of Philadelphia police officers in city history. 38-year-old Maurice Hill faces dozens of charges of attempted murder. 6 officers were shot during a 7-hour standoff on August 14th, 2019 in the city's Nicetown Tioga section. Hill also faces 62 attempted murder charges for allegedly shooting at 62 other officers on the scene. Prosecutors say Hill held 2 officers hostage as well. The new trial date is September 19th, 2022.
Shots fired coming from the second floor.
Overnight, a terrifying standoff playing out in this North Philadelphia neighborhood.
Shots fired at police.
Police radio traffic frantic, an officer desperately calling for backup, pleading for everything you've got.
I'm still ringing off. Give me SWAT ASAP. Long gun ASAP.
Hundreds of police, armored vehicles, and SWAT teams converging on this house, taking cover as the suspect barricaded inside a building, fired round after round.
Still shots fired. I got officers shot at this location.
At least 6 officers were shot and wounded, many of them hit while attempting to serve a warrant to the suspect, identified overnight by his lawyer as Maurice Hill. All are said to have non-life-threatening injuries.
The shooter fired multiple rounds. Officers returned fire, many of whom had to escape through windows and doors.
Somehow, 2 officers got trapped inside, along with 3 other unidentified hostages. A SWAT team eventually rushing in to rescue them.
It's nothing short of a miracle that we don't have multiple officers killed today.
The firefight and the effort to free them stretched for hours. Hill's lawyer telling NBC News the suspect called him desperate for a way out.
It did come to the point where it's like, listen, man, we're going to go in the house. If you're not here by a certain time, if he doesn't come out by a certain time, we're going in. And then, God only knows what'll happen.
Terrified residents watched with horror, especially worried about 80 children at a nearby daycare center. The kids and caretakers sheltering in place until they could be evacuated. Part of Temple University's campus also on lockdown.
Over 100 shots, over rounds and rounds, gunpowder smelling, terrible. I'm afraid.
Philadelphia's mayor appalled that anyone had the firepower to hold off police for so long.
Our officers need help. They need help. They need help with gun control. They need help with keeping these weapons out of these people's hands.
More than 7 hours after the first shots rang out, it ended. The gunman surrendering to police.
They charged him with 62 attempt charges. He got 62 attempt charges due to the fact, how many times he was basically, letting it go. So his attorney, Shaka Johnson, somehow had convinced him to, pretty much to come out and surrender, put his weapons down, because he had a chopper in there. He had an AR. He was letting off, and he also had some handguns. So, Shaka Johnson had convinced him to, surrender. That way he wouldn't get his life taken, even though with saying that his life is over anyway. All of those charges against, the officers, like I said, he got 62 attempt charges. And Shaka Johnson said, I could sense that he was panicking and trying to figure out, how do I get out of this situation alive, Johnson said. Johnson said he arrived at the home and was allowed to wear body armor and approached the home with officers. So Shaka Johnson came on the scene, put a vest on, and walked in with the officers to help convince him to surrender himself. So the suspect would know Johnson was there before surrendering. I just kept the conversation as lighthearted as it could be under the circumstances. And when you appropriate, I switch back to you. You've got to come out, man, and you have to put your phone down. You can't come out with any weapons. You just got to put your hands up, Johnson said. Just a quick thing on Shaka Johnson. Before a lot of people heard of him, publicly, we all know, Quilly spoke on Shaka Johnson a lot. I gotta say that Shaka Johnson is definitely not only a lawyer, but he's a true hustler. I came across Shaka Johnson in 2008. At the time, it was like, y'all know everybody that been on State Road, you can have preliminary at CJC, or you can have it at the district that you originally got arrested at. And I was going down for preliminary and at the 35th district, and Shaka Johnson came back there to the cells and was handing out his cards. That's around the time when he just got started. He was trying to get his name up, but he had great prices. He went to everybody that was in them holding cells. So shout out to Shaka Johnson. He came a very long way. So with that being said, you know, a large police presence responded to the shooting about 4:30 p.m. in a residential area of the Nicetown neighborhood. Ross said that officers were already inside and in the rear of the building when the gunman opened fire, forcing them to escape a barrage of bullets through the windows and doors. Yes, it was cops jumping out windows and everything when he started, you know, letting it rip. This was a narcotics warrant that went awry almost immediately, and the officers came under fire. So it was basically, they was, you know, running down on them for a trap warrant. And even though he had them ratchets in there, he would have made out definitely better just, you know, dealing with what came to him, because now he's never going to come home, where he could have got like, you know, 10 to 15 years or something. You know, now it's over for him. He said officers were in different areas of the building to quickly secure it, and some became trapped upstairs. Officers took cover behind cars and blocked off surrounding streets as they were fired upon. Police returned fire. Ross said just about every officer at the scene came under fire at some point. He said SWAT members were able to stealthily extract the two trapped officers and others, and police don't believe the gunman was aware of the operation that freed them, Ross said. Police have not said what kind of weapon or weapons the gunman was firing. Eventually, it had got released that, you know, he had an AR in the crib and a couple handguns, you know, and he was just switching up ratchets and just, you know, going at it. One thing that wasn't mentioned in this ad, in this newspaper, that the news didn't publicly say, was that the officers that was out there, they was actually grabbing random people. They grabbed and handcuffed, you know, guys out there and was using them as shields. Like basically had them handcuffed, sitting on the ground. They was behind them while all this stuff was letting off and all of that. And you know, that was just a crazy situation, and it shows you the disregard a life that was out there, period. You know, they won't speak on that. And it was actually people that was taken in. We actually heard, you know, Leek Moss speak about it, that he was one of the guys that they had handcuffed and had a bunch of them sitting in handcuffs in front of them, as it's like they was using them as shields. And it was a lot of people that was taken in custody that day, even though they knew it was one person in the crib that was doing it. So they did that to try to, I guess, cover themselves. So it was a real sloppy situation. But this SV Twiz, the Hood Blogger, y'all know how I carry it. Shout out to everybody that's been rocking with the content. Stay tuned. Keep those DMs coming and drop comments of any videos that, you know, y'all want me to speak on. That's all. Ain't no more to it.